All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we'll cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And the X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the X Zone Broadcast Network, from our studios and offices in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming at classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is a gentleman I've had on the show a number of times. His name is Preston Dennett, and Preston began investigating UFOs and the paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and co-workers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Now, since then, he has been interviewed on many shows. He's interviewed hundreds of witnesses, investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomena. He is a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, which is MUFON, a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of 30 books and more than 100 articles on UFOs and the paranormal. Joining me now is Preston Dennett. And Preston, welcome back to the X Zone.
Hey, thanks, Rob McConnell. Thanks for having me on.
Preston, you are one busy dude. How many books do you have now? It says 30 here, but I'm sure there must be more than 30 by now.
Yeah, it's 32, and
wow.
2 or 3 more in the works.
Preston, is there any activity in one field that you investigate more than any other these days?
I really like focusing on first-hand contact cases. I think they're just the real heart, the core of the UFO phenomena.
Mm-hmm.
I like looking at all of it. It's all these pieces of the puzzle make it really interesting.
Preston, something that's happening is that a lot of the UFO researchers are re-examining the Rennie memo. What is your take on that?
Well, I like look. I think this is an important case. The whole Roswell incident is the case that keeps on giving. It's, I think, the most important UFO case out there. There's so many witnesses. It's undeniable. The more we look into it, more confirmation there is. To me, disclosure is not done until we see the Roswell craft in a museum. Yeah, anything we can do to push that forward, I support it 100%.
Do you think that day will ever come?
No. Well, I'm an optimist by nature, but honestly, being in this field for so long, I don't think our governments are ever going to willingly disclose.
But if I'm correct in believing that other countries and other governments have crashed UFOs as well, so if, let's say, Ireland, for example, and there's a real stretch, was to say, all right, yes, we have a crashed UFO, here it is, bang. The experts go over to Ireland after they have a couple of cases of Guinness and Irish whiskey. They go to the crash site. They take a look at this UFO and they say to the world, yes, it is a real crashed UFO. Wouldn't that tilt the arm of all the other nations who have crashed UFOs to, come forth and say, well, yeah, we've got them too?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm hoping will happen. Some little country out there gets their hands on one of these things and just absolutely sets the dominoes falling. Because that's all it would take. It's
Yeah.
just one person to really the country.
You know, when we look at the Roswell case, 1947, 50, 60 years ago, 60, 70 years ago, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost going to be 100 in,
Yeah.
20 years.
Right. So with all the modern technology that investigators have at their disposal these days, that they didn't have at the start of the Roswell investigations, they didn't have, let's say, even 30, 40 years ago, but they have it today. Are the investigators getting any closer using newer technology and AI to getting the information that would, take away speculation and put it into the grounds of highly probable?
Yeah, well, I think the problem is, while we have interviewed a lot of witnesses, upwards of 300,
Wow.
still resting largely on anecdotal testimony. There's not really a strong paper trail even. That craft is somewhere. So sooner or later, you can lie about it, you can distort the truth, you can cover it up. You can never destroy it. Sooner or later, the truth is going to come out. How or when, that's my hope.
The truth always does come out, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's the Aztec crash as well. The
Right.
1965 expert case. There's quite a few cases like that. So sooner or later, someone's got to spill the beans.
Right, and like we were saying, that if the United States has all these crashes that occurred in the United States, that expert witnesses, expert testimony have been collected, except for the evidence itself, something's got to give somewhere.
Now, what's frustrating is these UFO crash retrieval reports are hands down conclusive evidence, hard physical evidence, undeniable, and yet resting solely on testimony. Honestly, the landing trace evidence, something to get your hands on and sink deep into a little bit more. Photographs, implant removals. We have lots of physical evidence out there. Boy, if we could get our hands on these craft, it would be game over.
But with the evidence, the physical evidence that is out there right now, Preston, how come it's not enough to say beyond the shadow of a doubt that this really happens, this really exists, here's the proof?
I think honestly it's because we are all victims of the UFO cover-up. An enormous amount of time, money, and energy. Very concerted campaign of disinformation and suppression of UFO evidence, and making all UFO reports explainable as, quote, hoaxes, hallucinations, and misperceptions. And people have bought into it. We're all victims of this. It's definitely beginning to turn the other direction. But that, I think, is the main reason why we still have any skepticism at all. Because honestly, we have almost 1 million documented reports. How many is it going to take for people decide that this is something we really need to take more seriously?
How did the congressional hearing with David Grush, did that help anything?
It was certainly unprecedented in some ways. It's still a lot of smoke and mirrors. It was all talk, no real action. But it certainly was fascinating to see members of Congress saying unequivocally that this is a real phenomenon. There is validity to it. There is a cover-up. Pentagon's not cooperating. We want truth and transparency. And one guy actually said, some of us have seen UFOs, but I'm not going to name names. And that's when I wanted to throw something at the TV. Because I'm thinking, well, if you want truth and transparency, name names.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, it was frustrating on one level, but certainly progress.
Have there been any other UFO crashes or UFO incidents that parallel the Roswell case in recent years?
Not really that I know of. There's certainly reports here and there, but nothing to the level of hundreds of witnesses. The Aztec crash was 1 year later. That's pretty well verified. The Ramseys, Scott and Suzanne Ramsey, have done some excellent research onto that case. And I think the Kecksburg case in 1965 is pretty well verified. But most of these crash cases are what we would consider historical cases. I don't know of any really good modern ones.
I guess we can say that these are historical cases for ufologists.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I imagine there's others out there. It's just the cover-up is really still in place at this point. We don't hear about most of what's going on, not even from contactees and experiencers. The vast majority of them keep silent.
Why do you think that this cover-up is still in effect, that disclosure hasn't come yet?
Yeah, well, I hate to speculate. You can't help it because I think, honestly, it comes down to power, greed, control. We've pretty much identified who the folks are behind the cover-up. We know it's the highest levels of the military. We know it's the intelligence agencies, the Pentagon, to an extent the military-industrial complex. Ball's in their court. It's really hard to pin it down, though, because, again, this is a subject that doesn't really have a paper trail. If you try to find documents on Roswell, they're going to be stonewalled the whole way. Representative Stephen Schiff of New Mexico found this out the hard way. He couldn't get anything on it, and he's a congressman.
If this is just a hypothetical question, Preston, if UFOs have been here, are here, and being witnessed, why doesn't the UFO occupants just land in a place that just cannot be denied of their existence?
I think they know better than that. I don't think their goal is to wreak havoc and create huge repercussions in our society. I think what they're doing is a very carefully and clever publicity campaign to announce their presence. Hence, we see more than 100 cases of UFOs over schoolyards. I wrote a whole book on that. Followed it up with 100 cases of UFOs over drive-in theaters, of all places, which is a very clever way to announce their presence. And we see UFO waves. They're pretty undeniable. 5 or 10 years or so. Hundreds upon hundreds of people are seeing these things.
Right.
Or a small town, perhaps, or upstate New York, Hudson Valley, rather. Or Wytheville, Virginia had a huge wave. Tiny little town. But this is a type of activity we call UFO displays. And they're definitely doing it and have been for a very long time. I mean, they flew over the White House back in 1952. Or 54. That was pretty much undeniable. They didn't land on the White House lawn.
Yeah, but it came close, eh? Preston, you and I have to take a break. Please stand by. Exonation Preston Dennett is our very special guest this hour. And if you'd like to get more information about Preston, it's prestondennett.weebly.com. And he also has a Facebook page, facebook.com/preston.dennett. We'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the X Zone Broadcast Network and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming at classic1220.ca.
On a morning from a Bogart movie, in a country where they turn back time, you go strolling through the crowd like Peter Lorre contemplating a crime. She comes out of the sun in a silk.
And welcome back, everyone. Preston Dennett is my guest this hour. His website is preston.dennett.com / no, wait a minute. It's prestondennett.weebly.com, and his Facebook page is facebook.com / preston.dennett. Preston, we were talking briefly about hundreds of sightings over schoolyards. Can you tell us a bit about that?
There's a very well-known case in Rua, Zimbabwe at Ariel Elementary School, September 1994, in which some 200 kids were on the playground and UFOs landed, ETs came out, A smaller group of students saw them, actually communicated with them. It's a very well-known case. And when I heard about that one, I instantly thought of the one in Melbourne, Australia, 1966. And that was at Westall High School. Again, some 200 to 300 students saw this, teachers as well. Those came down, hovered over the school, actually landed right along the back of the school there. I thought, well, gosh, this is interesting, because I instantly thought of another case, which was 1 year later to the day, by the way, in Opelika, Florida, Crestview Elementary School. And all these other cases started popping into my mind. Broadhaven in Wales, Hillsdale College in Michigan, which, by the way, was 2 weeks before the Westall High School case. So I started digging deeper into this, and boy, did I get a shock.
What was that?
Because I found a lot of cases dating all the way back to 1950 and onward. Pretty much every year, a couple of really high-profile cases of UFOs at schoolyards. And what makes these cases so interesting is these are almost always daylight sightings. They're very low level.
Mm-hmm.
1/3 of them, Rob, get this, involve landings and or humanoid, which is pretty remarkable when you consider most encounters are just simple sightings.
Sure. Is there any connection as far as geological location, lines of longitude, latitude, anything that could explain why these UFOs are landing and being seen over schools?
I plotted them on a map and tried to find patterns. What it reminded me of actually was like a concert tour, or an author doing a book tour, where they go from city to city and just basically show up and sort of do a publicity tour is what it looks like to me. Honestly, I think that's ultimately what their agenda is with these cases, because there's not a whole lot else happening other than them showing up. They'll put on a little show for sure. They'll come. They're very, very low-level sightings, and a lot of witnesses in each case. On the smaller end would be 10, 20 students, but more often it's 50 or 100 or 200 or 300 or more even. But yeah, from school to school to school, mostly elementary schools. I did find that pattern. Over 50% were at elementary schools, which I think is significant because these are our youngest kids, most impressionable. Most have never been heard of UFOs.
What about the schools themselves? Were any pictures taken? Local law enforcement? Was local law enforcement called? Was there any documentation of a research type taken?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was one at Sacred Heart Elementary School, and I think this was in Illinois. There was a police officer on the playground, actually. He was functioning as a watch officer, just watching over the kids.
Mm-hmm.
The UFO showed up, and he happened to have a movie camera in his cruiser. So he ran and got it and filmed about 30 seconds of this object. Now, mind you, when he first saw it, it was quite low.
Right.
It was about the size of a school bus, he said. But by the time he got his camera out, it was moving off into the distance. And if you see the footage, not super impressive by today's standards, but certainly intelligence agencies showed great interest in it. And it's not the only case. There was another student at a school in North Carolina, I believe, who this UFO was showing up night after night. He actually got a really good photograph of it. And then off it went, never to show up again. But yeah, there's some really good photographic evidence in some of these cases.
In the descriptions that you were able to get of these UFOs, Preston, was it the same description, the same type of UFO, the same color, the same patterns?
No, it was quite varied, actually. Mostly your classic flying saucer, but you had objects that were described as cigar-shaped or egg-shaped, spherical. Some were just lighted, glowing objects. A number of them did have portholes and things like this. There was one case in New York where this object was coming in for a landing on the playground itself. And they described it as looking very much like a lunar lander. It didn't land. It suddenly took off when everyone came running towards it. But a very wide description of objects, mostly saucer-shaped.
Was there any attempt of communication by the occupants of the craft and the children in the playgrounds?
In most cases, no. certainly that was a factor in the Rua Zimbabwe case. And I later spoke with Ray Hernandez, who talked to a teacher at a school in Colombia, where yes, the UFOs landed and communicated with the students, providing the same sort of messages that were given in the Rua Zimbabwe case, which is about the destruction of the environment, the dangers of technology. I tracked down a few cases myself. One lady in Mentor, Ohio, she was at a grade school when this UFO came down, and several students saw it, and she got a very clear telepathic message, which was quite simple. It was basically just, remember this day. It was repeated several times. She says this was not something she was thinking. This was coming from the craft. That was her distinct impression.
Do you think that these visitors, for lack of better words, pose a threat to humanity, or are they here to help us?
I don't think they pose a threat. And I base that on the first-hand cases of contactees and the fact that, one, they've been around for a very long time and have not done anything overtly hostile like we do to each other in terms of annihilating each other. But no, I think we've got a pretty good handle on their goal, their mission, their agenda, because they take people on board, they will physically examine them. And this is often when a healing takes place. Healing is definitely a part of their agenda.
Now, I've heard that from you a few times, and I find this fascinating.
Yeah, I love these cases because this is solid physical evidence.
Right.
There's some really good reports involving the doctors' reports with before and after medical records showing where cysts have disappeared, or cancer has been cured, or Crohn's disease. That was a really interesting case with Chris Bledsoe. Many cases involved. I mean, over 300 at this point are well documented from most major researchers across the world. I mean, Bud Hopkins had cases, as did John Mack and David Jacobs and Edith Fiore, Yvonne Smith, Barbara Lamb. I could go on. Most major researchers have cases like these, so it's pretty clear that is definitely a part of the contact experience. But yeah, we know that they're trying to warn people. This is a very common thing. If anyone's going to get a message of any kind, it's going to be something along the lines of warnings about nuclear proliferation, or really the use of nuclear material in any capacity, but also war and aggression, greed and corruption, pollution, that's a big one, destruction of the environment, these sort of things. So we're getting a more clear picture about what the purpose is for people being taken on board.
Preston, I'd like to let our listeners know about some of the books you've written and why I love having you on this show. And thanks for coming on all these years, Preston. Like, between the two of us, we've seen a lot of changes going on, and yet you're there, and just like Stephen Bassett, Kevin Randall, and I could go on listing other people like you who are out there to, number one, get the truth out there. Do it in a responsible, researched manner. Talk to the witnesses. Find out what's going on. And you know what? That's a lot of work. And here's just some of the books that Preston's written, X Zone Nation. Aliens and UFOs, Chelsea House, 2008, Bigfoot, Yeti, and Other Ape Men, California Ghosts, The Coronado Island UFO Incident, Extraterrestrial Visitations, Ghosts of Greater Los Angeles, The Healing Power of UFOs, Human Levitation, Inside UFOs, Not From Here, Volume 1, Not From Here, Volume 2, Not From Here, Volume 3, Not From Here, Volume 4, and now Not From Here, Volume 5, Onboard UFO Encounters, 1 in 40, The UFO Epidemic, Out of Body Exploring, Schoolyard UFO Encounters, Supernatural UFOs, Cemetery, A True UFO Adventure, UFO Healings, UFOs at Drive-ins, UFO over Arizona, and so on. These are books that are, they're standing the test of time, because these sightings and these incidents that you've written about over the years continue to keep happening.
Exactly. I think armchair research has an important aspect to ufology, but boots on the ground, That's the kind of research I love doing. I love talking firsthand to experiencers. Like the book Symmetry, probably my favorite is the experiences of Dolly Saffron, who's had lifelong experiences
Really,
with
eh?
ETs. I got a lot of information from this woman who was able to really prove her case to me, not only with medical records and photographs and corroborating witnesses, but I became a participant in her case. I saw the UFOs. So this is the kind of research I love to do.
All right, stand by. Preston, you and I have to take our break for the middle of the hour. Boy, this hour's going fast. Thanks very much for joining us. And Exo Nation, if you'd like to find out more about Preston, if you'd like to order any of his books, Preston, I believe they're available on Amazon.com.
That's right. Yep.
Okay, go to Amazon.com, and Preston's website is Preston Dennett. That's DENNETT.weebly.com, and his Facebook page is facebook.com/Preston.Dennett. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, and Preston and I will be back on the other side of this short break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
On a morning from a Bogart movie, in a country where they turn back time, you go strolling through the crowd like Peter Lorre contemplating a crime. I'm singing to the world. It's time we let the spirit come in. Let it come on in. I'm singing to the world. Everybody's caught in the spin. Look at where we've been. We've been running around year after year, blinded with pride, blinded with fear. But it's daybreak. If you wanna believe, it can be daybreak. Ain't no time to grieve. Said it's daybreak. If you'll only believe and let it shine, shine, shine all around the world.
And welcome back. Preston Dennett is my special guest this hour. And as I've said before, we've had the pleasure of having Preston on the show over the many years that the X Zone's been on air. In fact, this is our 35th year of broadcasting on air. So it's because of guests like Preston and the other wonderful guests we've had. Let me see. Craig, how many guests have we had, that individual interviews, over the last 35 years? 6,874 individual guests have been interviewed here on this show. And it's because of people like Preston who come on and share his knowledge and the research he's done that you, the members of the X Zone Nation, keep listening to the show and telling your friends about it. And the members of the X Zone Nation grows and grows each day. So to our guest, like you, Preston, thank you for coming on the show. And to all the listeners on the X Zone Broadcast Network, on our family of broadcast affiliates in Canada, the United States, and the United Kingdom, and listening in your cars, no matter where you are, all I ask is when you get a nice tune on in the car, pull over before you start dancing. That's all I'm asking, Drive safely. Take care. And if you're in a restaurant like Cat's Caboose over here on Glendale, don't dance on the tables, please. The management kind of gets upset with me when I go in there with Laura to have our favorite beverages and something off their menu. They'll say, Rob, please, do me a favor. And I'll say, what's that? Ask your listeners not to dance on our tables, please. Okay, so X Zone Nation, next time you go to Cats, please don't dance on their tables. And please don't dance when you're driving in your car. And for goodness sake, if you're on the side of the road, put your four-way flashers on and dance on the right-hand side of your vehicle, not on the traffic lanes. Preston, we were talking about extraterrestrials and all the great books that you've written, and I had a thought. over the commercial break. If in fact there was the threat of nuclear war, and one of the countries hit that button, and then the other country hit their button, would, in your opinion, the ETs stop it?
I would like to think so. I'm not going to count on it because we've had this situation happen, and where were the ETs? Now, Fukushima is interesting because we had a major meltdown there.
Yeah.
There was some really interesting photographic evidence and film evidence of UFOs over Fukushima.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty impressive. It was on one of the recent reality TV shows. So I think it's certainly a possibility, given incidents like the Malmstrom incident in March of 1967, where they did come down and basically shut down our ICBMs, all of them, which are independent systems. So that was an absolutely undeniable case. I spoke to a witness firsthand. So I have to think it's a possibility, but they've told many contactees that ultimately they can't intervene any more than they already are because it's up to us to solve our own problems.
Holy cow. What was the name of that place in Russia? Do you think I can remember its name right now, where they had the big meltdown?
Oh, Chernobyl.
Thank you. Chernobyl. They didn't show up there either, did they?
I have no good reporting on it.
Yeah.
So they did at 3 Mile Island, Pennsylvania. There's a couple of... I didn't talk to the witness firsthand. It was submitted to MUFON.
Right.
It was certainly an interesting report of a UFO being seen over the reactor at the time of this incident. Doesn't surprise me, because if you look into this, Robert Hastings has done great work on the connection to UFOs and nukes. There is not a location, whether it's a missile base or a missile cruiser or a submarine or a power plant, that doesn't have some history of UFOs over it.
There was the big power blackout that the big one that knocked out the eastern seaboard, New York City, and all the big cities. Do you remember that one, Preston?
I wasn't there. My father was, actually, in 1965.
It was 65, that's right.
Yeah, pretty strong UFO connection. A lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
There's some 50 or 100 reports of UFOs seen during that time.
We're right here in St. Catharines, and we're just about 10 minutes away from the Niagara River. And there's a power plant in between Niagara-on-the-Lake and the city of Niagara Falls on the Niagara Falls River, and it's a Sir Adam Beck Dam. And during the lead up to the power failure, there were dozens of reports by the Niagara Parks Police, the Ontario Provincial Police, the Niagara Regional Police, the Power Commission itself, as well as independent people, tourists, who saw UFOs over the transformers.
Yeah, exactly. I know it well. There's a definite connection to a number of power outages and UFOs. That's the granddaddy of all cases.
Yeah.
It made it to the congressional hearings in the 1970s. Definitely something happened there. That is
something did, yeah. Is there more evidence coming to your ears and the other ears of researchers like yourself of a UFO Bigfoot connection?
Absolutely. I did a study of that in one of my Not From Here volumes. Because I had my own case involving a radiologist who had a UFO land in his backyard. This is in the Los Angeles forest, which is huge, by the way.
Right.
And the next day I had a Bigfoot encounter. And I'm like, okay, well, this is kind of interesting. I'd avoided Bigfoot. But after getting another report very similar, I looked into it. And there are a good 50 cases of this. Now, statistically speaking, that's almost insignificant given how many reports there are, both Bigfoot and UFOs. But yeah, sometimes these two things intersect perfectly. I mean, there are cases of people seeing Bigfoot going into a UFO, coming out of it, in the presence of grays, ETs of various kinds, really. A really remarkable case like that in Colorado at a ranch. So yeah, there is a connection there. Honestly, I don't think Bigfoot is an ET. I think Bigfoot is probably intelligent, some of them, and some of them are what we would call contactees.
Right. It's amazing that Bigfoot resembles Chewie. from the Star Wars.
Yeah, he may have known something there.
Yeah, yeah. Let me see here. What else was I going to ask you? Do people who have UFO experiences, contacts, or who have been abducted, do they have any change in their dream patterns?
Oh, certainly. Yeah. The UFO contact experience has a profound effect on a person on multiple levels. I mean, emotionally, certainly. It can be very traumatic and cause nightmares and PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Often people will have missing time and they'll recall it in their dreams. But it goes way beyond that, because the contact experience wakes a person up spiritually, psychically. So following a, say, onboard experience, they might start having episodes of precognition, astral projection, remote viewing. I mean, they might spark up with mediumship, physical levitation. I found about 20 cases of people who physically levitated. I know how this sounds. After their encounter. Jacques Vallée had a case, Bud Hopkins. It's not as uncommon as you might think.
Now, during your investigative research, have you ever seen anyone levitate who's had an encounter or been abducted?
I have not personally witnessed it. No, I've interviewed people who've had this experience. Certainly seen some interesting photographs and films, having researched the subject of levitation myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I am absolutely convinced this is a real human ability. It's been proven in a laboratory setting at least 3 or 4 times, very rigorously, with scientists. So there's no doubt it's a real thing.
When somebody has an onboard UFO encounter, do all the UFOs on the inside, are they all the same, or are there different types of models?
There's some very distinct commonalities that people do describe.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the most common description is indirect lighting. Over and over again, people say it was very bright in there, but there was no light bulbs that they could see.
Huh.
So it's almost as if the walls themselves glow. It's even beyond that. Often very much described as rounded, no corners, no seams, anything like that. Usually very clean. Another very interesting detail, which isn't super common, but turns up again and again, is that the object is bigger on the inside than it appears on the outside.
Huh.
You get a 20-foot UFO, and you go in there, and it's a gymnasium.
Really, eh?
Yeah, I've gotten a number of reports of that. It's really funny listening to the witnesses trying to describe it. Yeah, many commonalities.
I've got about a minute before I have to go for my next break, but I'd like to ask you, are all people who have encounters come back with a negative, or do most people come back with a positive experience?
In my research, and I've certainly looked into this, most ultimately conclude it's positive. Now, when it starts out, it's a different story. It's a bit of a mixed bag, because it can be very, very frightening for people. But ultimately, people realize, after they've possibly been healed or had sort of a spiritual enlightenment or psychic awakening, they realize the ETs are not there to hurt them. In fact, the first thing they'll say, almost without exception, is don't be afraid. Have no fear. We're not here to harm you. No harm will come to you. So while it may start out as a very scary experience,
right,
it's pretty rare that people tell me, oh, they're evil, I think they're demonic. No. Most people, the vast majority of them, ultimately conclude that this was a positive experience for them, and they wouldn't trade it for anything.
All right, my friend, please stand by. And Exo Nation, our guest this hour is Preston Dennett. His website is Preston Dennett, all one word, .weebly.com, and Preston's Facebook page is facebook.com/Preston.Dennett. And all of Preston's books are available on Amazon.com. And Preston and I will be back on the other side of the short break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone with Preston. And hour 2 will start shortly after the top of the hour. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we come to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight on the, how can I say it? the most popular AM radio station in Niagara, your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streaming around the world on classic1220.ca. Preston and I will return. Don't go away or get abducted. Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell. Preston Dennett is my very special guest this hour. www.prestondennett.weebly.com, and on Facebook, facebook.com/Preston.Dennett. And all of Preston's books are available on Amazon.com. As always, Preston, really great having you with us. Thanks for being our guest this hour, because I know that you've got a very busy schedule. I'd like to ask you, I'd like you to tell us about your latest book, Not From Here, Volume 5.
Oh, thanks, Rob. I love these volumes because I get to explore the more weird and unusual sort of outlying cases that don't fit the standard mold, perhaps, of contact, or avenues of research that haven't been explored a lot. And this latest volume, of course, has 10 different chapters of different subjects, such as alien names. There hasn't been a whole lot of research onto that. Alien books. There's a number of cases. I know this sounds strange, where people have been given books, such as the Betty Hill case. They gave her a book, and she almost took it off the craft. They took it away at the last second. Betty Andreasen, Dolly Safran, the contactee I mentioned earlier, she had this experience. A lot of cases of this. They have some really unusual cases that we haven't heard a whole lot about.
What kind of books were given to the people to read on board?
Well, it's hard to say exactly what some of them contain, because most of the witnesses saw symbols and things like this.
Gotcha.
That was true with Betty Hill. Betty Andreasen said it contained spiritual information, which was exactly what Jeff Delver, a contactee from Canada, who's getting quite a bit of attention recently. He said it contained all kinds of information about love, the power of love, how to manifest, how to levitate, how to boost your psychic abilities, all kinds of really deeply spiritual information. Contactee Dolly Safran echoes that. She also had this book experience and said that it actually would give holographic information, full color. It would interact with her, and all kinds of aphorisms and scientific information, morality, ethics, whatever she was interested in, it would respond to. And quite a few cases of this. It's really remarkable.
Preston, could some of these symbols that the abductees or the contactees were showing could have been a reflection of those that were on the Roswell ship that Jesse Marcel recovered?
As far as I know, no one's been able to connect that directly. That certainly would be an interesting study.
Right.
I know Betty Hill, she did write down the symbols she recalled, and I showed them to Dolly Safran because she's my go-to gal. And she was actually able to decipher some of these and said, well, these are actually very much similar to flight instructions, basically telling how the craft is flying at a certain angle or stopping or going or something along these lines. But most people describe, this is an interactive book that provides spiritual information of some kind.
Well, we need all the help we can get, don't we?
Couldn't hurt.
Couldn't hurt. There's also speculation that some of the visitors that are coming here are actually from a different dimension or a parallel universe. Any connections with those and the research you've done?
I've certainly looked into it. You want to consider all theories, but basically what a true scientist does is collects the data and then forms the theory, and not vice versa. So I have not been able to find any really good reporting on these are beings from our future or anything like that. Certainly there are interdimensional aspects to them. They travel interdimensionally.
Right.
That's pretty clear. But then again, we humans are interdimensional. So I'm not sure how useful it is to label them as interdimensional, because it doesn't preclude them being extraterrestrial in origin, which is really where the evidence is pointing more and more.
All right, let's go back to 1986. Here we are, 38 years later? Did you ever think, when your interest was piqued in UFOs, that 38 years later you'd have more 38 or 30 plus books, been on I don't know how many TV, radio shows, articles all over the place? Did you think that fate was going to take you in the direction it has taken you?
Not in a million years. I'm a pretty shy guy. I certainly was about then. The last thing I would ever think of myself doing is getting in front of a camera or going on the radio. But, I'm having a good time. This is endlessly interesting. Once you think you've got a handle on it, along comes something like the drive-in movie theater cases or the schoolyards. Knocked me over. I had no idea, these were a thing. So, yeah, I had no idea at all that this would be the direction my life would take. I was so skeptical. I just did not think this was real. So, yeah, it took me by absolute surprise.
Once again, looking back over the hundreds of people you've interviewed for the 30 plus books you've written, what was the number one case or the number one interview that blew you away?
Oh, hands down, I've already mentioned it, is Dolly Safran, because she explained how they took her on board, the ETs, and asked her what did she want to learn from them. She said, I would love to learn how to fly the craft. And that really piqued my interest, because I had a few witnesses describe this earlier. They said, fine, we will teach you how to do this. And that became the whole focus of her contact. I was so glad when Grant Cameron, a Canadian researcher, who I'm sure you know of,
sure,
his book, Sky Pilot, outlining some 30 or 40 cases of this.
Yeah.
So that provided the verification, confirmation, because it sounds so wild when you tell people this. But no, her case is just off the charts amazing.
Is there anything that you saw when doing your investigation into Dolly that you would tend to believe is a marker on why she was chosen by the ETs?
We have some pretty good, strong indications that contact is generational. And certainly that's absolutely true in her case with her father, and going farther back than that, and to her children as well. So that comes up. But yeah, she showed me medical evidence. She has photographic evidence of a kind that I've never seen from a contactee. Every now and then, the contactee will provide a picture. He has moving films.
Wow.
Something that are just amazing.
Is it possible that these visitors that are coming into our realm of reality are from our future, and what they're trying to do is prevent a major cataclysm from happening that they've had to spend who knows how long cleaning up because of our stupidity?
I looked into it. I searched. I scoured the literature for a case that would really speak to that. And there are one or two that I'm not so sure I find credible. But no, they can do amazing things with time. They can basically predict the future to a certain extent.
Right.
And travel into the past. We've got lots of cases of people being pulled out of the time stream, having a 2, 3, 4 hour experience or longer, and being put back moments later. But no, I couldn't find anything that speaks to them being us in the future or from the future really at all.
Is there, in your opinion, once again based on your research, a biblical UFO connection?
To some extent, I think it's really interesting when you look at some of the historical cases of angels coming down and saying, "Have no fear, no harm will come to you."
That's right.
That's remarkably similar to what we hear from some of these ET modern cases. And there's been a lot of research into UFOs in the Bible, cases like Ezekiel and books of Enoch, which have really remarkable parallels. So I think there's some bleed through there. But I did research into angels and demons for that matter, and I think both are real phenomena. Probably separate, as near as I can tell, from ETs as we would think of them. But yeah, there's some really interesting sort of bleed throughs. And even with near-death experiences, there are people who've had a near-death experience and ETs show up. So there's some really interesting things that are going on here.
Is it possible that the second coming of Christ is actually when disclosure will happen?
I couldn't tell you. That's another area of research that I haven't really focused on. Certainly trying to follow it. I'm close with Michael Carter, Reverend Michael Carter. He's done a lot of research into that sort of aspect. But I find it interesting, I'll tell you that.
We've got about a minute and a half left. Quickly, what's your take on Skinwalker Ranch?
I'm a little bit skeptical of this being, a portal or anything like that. I've been on TV and I know how narrative can be spun easily. I've been frankly misquoted terribly.
Really?
Edited in ways that made me say the opposite of what I was basically trying to put forth.
Unbelievable.
So I don't know. Skinwalker is interesting, but I know that the Wichita Basin does have an enormous amount of UFO activity, which is where that's located. So.
Well, that time has come, my friend, when you and I must say so long. Let our listeners know how they can contact you and get your books.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to contact. I'm all over social media. My website, of course, PrestonDennett.weebly.com. I have a YouTube channel. I do a podcast with contactee Dolly Saffron every Monday evening. Pretty easy to find on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. I love this subject. I think it's super important and has the potential to make great changes on our planet.
Well, Preston, the door is always open to you, my friend, and thank you once again for coming on the show on, over all the years that we've been on. So thank you, and take care of yourself, and I look forward to your next book.
Thanks. Always an honor. Thank you.
You take care of yourself, Preston. Exonation, if you'd like to contact Preston Dennett one more time, PrestonDennett.weebly.com, and his Facebook page is Preston.Dennett. But of course, it's got to be Facebook.com/Preston.Dennett. Well, that's it for now. I'll be back on the other side of this break at the top of the hour as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, the home of the X Zone Broadcast Network. And we're coming to you tonight on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, streaming on classic1220.ca.